January 29th, 2018. A teenage girl climbs through a window in Paris, California. Jordan Turpin has never used a phone before, but desperation drives her to dial 911. Her voice shakes as she tells the operator something no one could imagine. 12 of her siblings are chained to beds inside their family home. When police arrive, they discover a house of horrors that defies comprehension. 13 children, ages 2 to 29, starved, tortured, and imprisoned by their own parents. The oldest victims are so malnourished, officers mistake them for children. The story explodes across every news channel in America. Media outlets paint it as a rescue story, a happy ending to unimaginable suffering. The public responds with overwhelming compassion and generosity. Donations pour in from across the country. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for the children's future. Everyone believed these children would finally be safe, finally be free. But what happened next would prove that sometimes the system meant to protect can become another kind of prison. If you're finding value in this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. But the nightmare wasn't over. The system that rescued them was about to tear apart the only bonds they had left. Within hours of their rescue, the 13 Turpin children were split apart, scattered like leaves in a storm. The 7 adult children over 18 were immediately separated from their younger siblings. They were placed in different adult facilities across the region. Miles apart from each other, the younger children faced an even crueler fate. Foster homes scattered across different counties. Some siblings ended up hundreds of miles apart. The system destroyed their only source of comfort. These children had survived hell together. They were each other's protectors, each other's anchors. Jordan, the brave girl who called 911, was sent to one foster home, her siblings scattered to others. The older children were placed in group homes and facilities where they knew no one. Contact between siblings was severely limited. Phone calls were monitored. Visits were rare. The children who had whispered secrets and shared fears in the dark were now alone. They had survived their parents' torture. But could they survive this new kind of hell? The system had torn apart their family bonds. But the worst betrayals were still to come. As we discussed, the Turpin children were scattered across the foster care system. But what happened next would shatter any hope of healing. The system designed to protect them became their next predator. Foster homes that were supposed to offer sanctuary became chambers of fresh hell. Multiple foster placements brought new horrors: physical abuse, emotional torture, neglect that rivaled their birth parents, cruelty. Foster parents saw dollar signs, not damaged children needing care. The monthly payments became their motivation, not love, not healing, money. One placement after another failed them. Each move brought fresh trauma to children who had already endured the unthinkable. The children began reporting something that would chill investigators to the bone. They felt safer with their abusive biological parents. Think about that for a moment. Children who had been chained, starved, and tortured were saying their foster homes were worse. They filed complaint after complaint. Desperate pleas for help that fell on deaf ears within a system that had already betrayed them. Red flags were everywhere. But the system that promised to protect them chose to look the other way. Social workers ignored warning signs. Supervisors dismissed their cries for help. The machine kept grinding forward, crushing these children beneath it. Each failed placement left deeper scars. Physical wounds healed. As the Turpin children suffered in their nightmare foster care, something even more sinister was happening behind closed doors. The public had opened their hearts and wallets. Over $600,000 poured in from strangers around the world. Money meant to give these tortured children a chance at a real life, a chance at healing. But the children would never see a single dollar of it. The court had appointed guardians to protect the children's interests, to safeguard their future. Instead, these so-called protectors became predators in suits. The guardians claimed complete control over every penny donated to help the Turpin children. When the children begged for basic necessities, they were told there wasn't enough money. Yet somehow, the guardians found plenty of funds for their own excessive fees. Hundreds of thousands disappeared into administrative costs and living expenses. The very people meant to help them were stealing their chance at a better life. The Turpin children had escaped one prison, only to find themselves trapped in another kind of cage. This time, their captors wore the mask of respectability and carried the authority of the court. But the worst was yet to come for these already broken children. As we saw with the younger children's horrific foster care experiences, the adult Turpin siblings faced an entirely different nightmare. At 18 and older, they were considered adults by the system. No foster care, no structured support, just freedom they had never learned to navigate. These young people had spent their entire lives locked in chains. Now they were expected to survive in a world they had never experienced. They didn't know how to use a bank account, how to apply for jobs, how to interact with strangers without paralyzing fear. Jordan Turpin, the hero who had saved them all, struggled to complete basic tasks like grocery shopping or making phone calls. The adult siblings were given minimal financial assistance, a few $100s a month to survive in California's expensive housing market. Remember those millions in donations pouring in from around the world? The adult children saw almost none of it. Joshua Turpin became so desperate that he turned to social media, begging strangers for help with basic necessities. In one heartbreaking post, he wrote that he was hungry and couldn't afford food. This was a child the world had watched being rescued. Several adult siblings became homeless, sleeping in cars or on friends' couches. Their childhood hell had been replaced by adult poverty. They had survived their parents' torture, only to face a different kind of slow destruction by neglect. The system that had failed to protect them as children was now failing to support them as vulnerable adults. While the world had moved on from their story, the Turpin children were still fighting for their very survival. But for 3 years after their rescue, the Turpin children remained silent about what happened next. But in November 2021, Jordan and Jennifer Turpin finally broke that silence. Speaking to Diane Sawyer, they exposed the system's catastrophic failures. Jordan revealed she was still living in squalor, still trapped, still hungry. Jennifer described years of abuse and foster care that rivaled their childhood horrors. They spoke of being sexually abused, beaten, treated worse than animals. The very system meant to save them had become their new prison. The interview sparked immediate outrage. America was horrified once again. Investigations were launched. Officials scrambled to explain the inexplicable. But for the Turpin children, the damage was already done. Several siblings remained trapped in the foster system, still suffering. The bitter irony was complete. They had escaped one hell only to enter another. The system that promised salvation had delivered nothing but more trauma. The Turpin children's story isn't just about surviving abuse. It's about a system that failed them twice. If this opened your eyes, smash that like button and subscribe for more.